Hi everybody, welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. My name is Pagan and I am joined by Kayla. Kayla, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So this month we're continuing our cultural appropriation conversation, but we're talking about some of the questions that we ask on the lesson that we have on the tempering path. And if this is your first time hearing about the tempering path, you can do two things. One, join the Discord and come follow the tempering path. It does not cost you anything except your own time. And two, you can go back to the episodes that start in January of 2026. Those start breaking down all the lessons from the tempering path, and we go through one lesson per month, and you can follow along with us if you want to. But we highly recommend you come join us in Discord and all of that. There's a whole bunch of other cool stuff that we do that's besides that, but I'm going to tell you at the end of the episode about all that other cool stuff. So let's kind of jump into this. These are our reflection prompts. These are the questions that go with each lesson, and we're going to go through a few of them, not all of them. So if you want to know all of them, you have to come join Discord. But we're going to start with a few of these. So I guess without further ado, we will start with, in what ways does your ego resist unlearning old spiritual habits? What are you afraid of losing? Kayla, you want to go first?
Sure. I guess in my ego, I guess my ego resists unlearning old spiritual habits just by way of not really so much of an ego way, because I don't resist unlearning old spiritual habits, but it's more of unlearning the habit of doing something. Does that kinda make sense? The habit of saying a word, the habit of
Yes.
doing a thing, that's what my ego resists. So, that's also kind of what I'm afraid of losing, I guess, is the habit of having a habit.
Yeah, that makes
Kinda like
sense.
chewing gum or chewing your nails is something that you do. You're just losing the habit. And that's what my ego resists.
That makes perfect sense. In what ways does my ego resist unlearning old spiritual habits? Um, for the longest time, way back in the day, I was afraid of being wrong, and I didn't want to basically look like an idiot. That was my biggest thing. I was afraid of getting stuff wrong. I was afraid of somebody who had taught me wrong. I was afraid that if I learned it wrong, I was a failure, and that goes back to trauma. But now I kind of almost relish in learning and unlearning, especially if I know that what I've learned was wrong. I don't fear it
Mhm.
anymore. I kind of get excited to learn about why it was being taught the way that it was, and what does it really end up being, truly what it was, instead of being the way that it was taught. And the act of learning that and being able to comprehend that is a little bit exciting, but kind of like you were saying, it is hard to break those habits, and it takes time and conscious effort. And it's not so much that I'm afraid of losing the habit. I get also kind of still a little bit of that old fear of, you know, what if I what if I hurt the people that this is actually hurting inadvertently? And I get more concerned about that than, losing
Right.
something. I don't want to, if I know that I'm doing something wrong, I will actively try to fix it and correct it. And even if it's old habits, old habits die hard, basically is the saying. And if it's something that's like that, I get more afraid that I'm gonna slip up and hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And so
And
that's more of that.
with me, I would much rather somebody tell me I'm doing something wrong so that I can fix it.
Same, same.
Now,
Absolutely.
Like, right now, I would much rather somebody say, "Hey, you're messing that up," so that I can fix it and do it the right way.
Right. And, here's the thing, as humans, sometimes we genuinely don't know because,
Yeah,
we've talked about this many times on especially on the last episode of how for a long time we were taught this is how this is supposed to be. This is how it was. It's open, it's okay, everything's fine. And then come to find out years later when those people, those cultures start speaking out and going, no, it really isn't. And you're like, oh, wow, I'm so sorry. Like, I genuinely didn't know. And then when you find out,
yeah,
you have to correct it. And so I would much rather kind of like you be told that I'm wrong, and I'm going to ask why I'm wrong. So if you tell me and just be like, you're wrong, it's like, be prepared for the why to come following it because I want to know how and why I'm wrong. And
so that I can fix the how and the why that I'm
right.
wrong.
And also to make sure that, you know, we're not basically just judging people to judge. We don't do that. We actively teach people. We talked about that in the last episode as well as don't shame somebody for not knowing. Educate them, help them be
Right.
better, help them learn so that way they can help protect those cultures that are being marginalized, that are being pushed out, that are, on the brink of erasure. We don't want that anymore. We want to make sure that those are being preserved and then we're not doing that to harm other people. We're trying to help them and preserve their cultures. So, anyway, that's where that goes. The next question is I guess how do you honor the boundaries of living cultures and traditions, and even when you're called or feel curious? Uh, well, if you want me to take this one, I can, or you can go either one.
Sure, go for it.
All right. Um, my biggest thing is I like to learn. I like to learn about them, not in a way to practice them, but to understand them and appreciate them. Um, I like to understand people. I like to understand the practices and cultures of people, which includes religion, which includes spiritual practices. And I want to know why we do things the way that we do. Why was this important to people? Why did this happen? And understand those practices. Again, not to practice them. I have pretty strict actually boundaries about where I practice and what I don't practice and what I like to adopt and what I don't like to adopt. And that's not because my practice is stuck. It's because I I guess you could say I know what I like. And so because of that, I want to make sure that what I'm learning is appreciating the people who have come before and also appreciating the cultures and understanding those cultures even though I have no place in them. I'm not practicing them. The difference between appropriation and appreciation is one, you learn about it from a respect point of view to understand it. And the other one is you learn about it to practice it, to assume that it's yours. I never assume those are mine. I never assume anything is mine. I learn about it from multiple perspectives, multiple voices, and if there are resources for it, of course, because I want to know the people behind that. I want to know their stories. I want to know the cultures and how they progressed into what they are. So if I feel called or I'm always curious. I don't want to say curious. Um, but feeling called into something, I will really examine where that calling comes from. Is it coming from a place of, cool, edgy X, Y, and Z, insert reason here? Is it coming from a place of heritage or culture or DNA? Is it coming from a place of that's super fascinating and my what I'd like to call my research raccoon is like chewing through the drywall to get to it? Um, or is it because I genuinely have a calling for it? And even then, if I do genuinely have that calling, I still check with myself to make sure that I have the space for it if that's something that I really want to adopt. And I also make sure that I'm allowed to practice it before I even consider it. I learn as much as I can about it. Partially because it keeps the research raccoon, as I was saying before, very happy, but also it's something that I don't ever wanna step on somebody else's toes. I want to learn as much as I can from as many perspectives as I can, even though I would still have my own experiences, but, my UPG is my UPG. But I'm never gonna go into a living culture or tradition that would be closed and assume that I could practice it, even if I'm called. I would really
Right.
look at the reasoning for why I would feel that way. I would look at
Right.
the psychology behind it and going, why do I feel this way? What's going on with me that makes me feel like I need to be a part of this? Um, because 90% of the time it's not a spiritual calling. It is something psychological, and we should never break somebody else's boundaries because we're feeling called. Um, it's there's a lot of stuff that can happen to make you feel called when it may not necessarily be a spiritual thing. And even if it is, you still have to double check it and use your discernment and really understand that sometimes even those callings, if they feel like you should be doing them, maybe the answer is still no. And I've been there.
Right.
I mean, I think everybody's been there at least once. And I can tell you that it doesn't hurt anything to say no. You're not going to get smited from above by X deity here. You're
Yes.
gonna have a genuine conversation with yourself and get to know you and get to know who you are as a practitioner, but also you get to respect the people who came before you. And you also get
Right.
to make sure that you are preserving parts of those things that are not yours to move forward into the future for the people that they belong to. So there's my
Mhm.
answer.
And for me, it's all of that pretty much. And I will add that I go to those cultures where I can. For me, I live in the foothills of the Appalachians, and there's a large Cherokee community here. And I grew up going to the Cherokee community. I grew up in those areas. Um, so I grew up with dream catchers from those communities and things like that.
Mhm.
So I still have a dream catcher that my grandmother got me when I was tiny, and I don't use it. I don't do anything with it other than remember my grandmother through it. And that's the only reason I still have it is because my grandmother gave it to me. Um, but because I feel that to do anything else with it would be an affront to that community and that culture. So, knowing the significance of an item and the significance of that item within that culture can help you know what to do with that item. And so, I am a collector. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a collector. So, I like collecting items that are from different cultures and different communities, but I treat them with a reverence for the community they're from. I don't use them in a way that would be, what's the word that's appropriate here? I don't treat them in a way that would be disrespectful to that community. And so I think honoring the boundaries of a living culture or a tradition, even if you're curious, you don't step on their traditions. You don't step on Yes, I know what a dream catcher is. Yes, I've done research. I've done all the studying, but I'm not that tradition. I'm not that faith background. I'm not going to do anything with that item to cross over that threshold of using it in any certain way. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it, it's like you've got to know where that threshold is that goes from honoring the culture and using the culture. And you've got to stop before you get to using the culture. Even if you're called, even if you're curious, you've got to know why you're called, why you're curious, why you have that feeling before you go into using. Because if you don't know the why, you're not going to know how to use. You're not going to know if, like Pagan said, you're not going to know if it's a closed culture or not. Maybe you haven't done that research yet. You're not going to know if it's for you.
Hmm.
So you've got to weigh all of those different little bubbles around the issue and then put them all together and say, okay, I'm at this threshold. What can I do and what can I not do? What am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? Is it okay for me to do this thing? Is it not okay for me to do this thing? And once you've taken all of these things into perspective, then you can make your decision. Am I called to do something more or am I called to witness? And for me, majority of the time, I'm called to witness. And that's okay.
Hmm.
That's perfectly fine. I'm called to learn. I'm called to know as much as I can possibly know about XYZ religious group, as much as it's okay for me to know about whatever the religious group is that I'm learning about that week,
Hmm.
about whatever deity is I'm learning about that week. And it's okay for me to be that person. It's okay for you to be that person. You don't have to jump into religious practice with everything that you learn about.
Right.
And not every road that and not every path that you go down in a research way is a path that you have to jump into in a religious way.
Yeah.
Not everything is meant for you, and that's okay too.
I do want to make one caveat for anybody who's, because we were talking about dream catchers. Um, a lot of indigenous stores and tourist places do sell dream catchers, medicine wheels, artwork, all of that. You can own one and display it as art, but you
Yes.
can't use it in practice. It shouldn't
N
be used in the practice way that it's meant for, because that's where the
correct.
appropriation comes into play. But having one
Correct.
on your wall, absolutely. I mean, I grew up in northern New Mexico. I have probably more New Mexican and indigenous art in my home than probably anything else, besides this other nerdy and spooky stuff I have. But that's because I grew up out there. And so having sand paintings, having the pottery and the tiles and the kachina dolls and the dream catchers and everything else in between, having those displayed in your home as art is fine. but using that as practice is different. And now I'm also going to say one other thing that might ruffle some feathers. Don't display indigenous or people of color's art in your home if you don't appreciate and like people of color.
Yes.
That's just as
Clap, clap,
disrespectful.
clap.
Yeah, you can't display their art and not appreciate the people who made it and where it came from, especially the hours and traditions and centuries of work that was probably behind that art piece and how
Yes.
it came up through generation and generation and culture and community. You can't
And you
dismiss that.
can't do that and dismiss the people who are living today.
Right.
Not just the people from the past, the people from today.
Yeah, because the people from today are the ones who are making it. So
So don't be that person.
yeah, don't be that person at all. But yes, you can display all of those things if they are sold publicly in your home as artwork, as appreciation, same with statuary and stuff like that. You can appreciate them and have them in your art as home as art, but not necessarily in a form of worship. You can just say, I
Right.
really enjoy dream catchers. I really enjoy, statues of specific, individuals or deities that might be from these practices. I like their imagery and their art, and that's how I see
Right.
them is because I see them as art, and I feel like their art should be reflected, and I wanted to appreciate in my
Correct.
home. That's fine. That's totally okay. But then putting it on an altar and then going and worshiping them, knowing that it's a closed practice, not so okay. Don't do that. So, our next question is, what does spiritual humility mean to you, and how does it show up, not show up in your practice?
So humility means to me is kind of ties both of these things together. Humility is knowing when to step back, when to take myself out of the equation, kind of, when to say, this isn't for me, this isn't my, not just it's not my jam, but when to say, this isn't something that is meant for me. It's also saying, this is something that is meant to learn about and to educate myself on, then I will be more knowledgeable about. But it's also on the flip side of that, you can be humble and know your worth. And you can be humble and know that yes, you do know these things and you have value. And you can be humble and know that you do know the things that you know, if that makes sense.
Yes. You can be humble and still have the education to understand where all of it comes from.
Yes,
Yeah.
to back up what you're saying, you have the legwork to put in that you've put in to back up everything you're saying. So, humility has both sides of it. It's got the, "Hey, I can take a step back and put myself on the back burner and let someone else lead." But at the same time, I can put myself on the front line and say, I know this and I can take the front line and take the shots of whatever comes at me and let it be. Let it be okay that you question whatever I'm doing. And how that shows up in my practice is hanging out with you guys right now and letting you guys pick apart anything I say. How it comes across in my practice as well as with my deities. is letting them pick me apart and say, "You're doing what you're supposed to do," or, "Hey, you didn't do what you're supposed to do. You
Mhm.
didn't show up. You didn't show up when you said you were gonna show up." So, that's the main part of how it shows up in my practice right now.
Alright. I think probably for me, my biggest thing of spiritual humility is I wanna say that my biggest thing is I don't wanna always be the loudest one in the room, you know? There was
Mm.
a time where, I wanted to be like, "I know this," and it's like, there's times where I'm still like, "This is my jam! Let me through, I can tell you all about it," because I get really excited. But there's also times where I'm like, I'd like to hear somebody else's perspective on this. Like, yeah, I know my shit. Cool. That's great. But also, like, tell me yours. Tell me your experience with this. Tell me where you learned from. Tell me all about it. Because I want to not just know that I know it, but I also want to hear other people's perspective. And having that humility to say, yes, I know things. Yes, I'm aware. Yes, I've been educated, whatever. Also, but giving other people the opportunity to still educate you, even though you know a ton about the subject, gives you a really
Yes.
great thing. I've probably this, is so funny because if you listen to the show long enough, you know that I've done some partnership with some publishers and had authors come on and talk about their books and all of that stuff. And I have probably read close to 300 plus intro to witchcraft books. Insert title here. um, do they all say pretty much the same thing? Most of them. Yeah. Is it incredibly boring? No, actually, because it gives me the opportunity to see it through somebody else's eyes, to see their perspectives, to see the way they teach it, the way that it comes through in their practice and their stories for how they, got to this point of understanding it. And hearing that from so many different voices, even though it's the same subject matter, is really fascinating because it allows you to see it through somebody else's eyes. And when it comes to cultural appropriation, spiritual humility is one of those things of I can say, no, this is not mine pretty easily.
Yes,
And
correct.
I can always go, I love your culture. I think that your people are amazing. I think your practice is amazing. I would like to learn about it
Yeah.
from an education perspective, but if I'm not allowed, I will absolutely back off.
Yes.
And
Yes.
a lot of times, more often than not, if there aren't really resources and you have to go to the sources to learn it, more often than not, when you approach things that way, in that humbled perspective, people are willing to teach you. Not teach
Mhm.
you how to practice it, but to teach you how
To
they
teach you
practice it, how their
or to
people
teach you
practiced
just
it,
about it.
about it in general. And they're more willing to do that because you're not coming at it from a place of, I'm going to take this home and put it on my altar today, and I'm going to become this kind of practitioner. And no, you're not. Please don't do that. That would be really
No.
terrible. But being able to sit down and learn from people who are in the communities and understand that and the different things doesn't make you less of a practitioner to not be the biggest voice in the room. It makes you a
Right.
better practitioner to also be the voice who stays quiet to let others teach you. Even if
Mhm.
their perspective is very limited and they don't know as much, that's okay. Some things they may still know really well and be able to teach you a different perspective. And I love that about people. I love hearing people come in and, learn their perspectives and learn how their practice works and how they integrate the same practice that all of us do in their way. And it makes me my little, soul so happy because I'm like, "Ooh, tell me more." Um, I
Tell me something else.
I it shows up in so many ways. And so the ways that I guess, you know, I don't know how it wouldn't show up. Um, because I try really hard to be humble in a lot of ways. Again, there I will admit that I have my little research raccoon and my little, excited autistic side that's like, I know this and I want to tell you all about it. And I get really excited. I know that. And it does not come across as humble. It comes across as very loud. And I'm sorry for anybody who's ever had to listen to that. Sometimes it just happens and it bursts through the door like, riding a unicorn, drinking a Red Bull. But at that point, it's like, here it is. And it's because it's exciting to me, it's fascinating, and I just wanna share it with the planet. Hence why this show still exists, because otherwise my family would probably hate the fact that I talk about witchcraft so much, so I do it to all of you. It's a trade-off. It works, so I don't annoy the people who I love. I just maybe annoy all of you, or not, because you keep coming back, so I'm gonna say, "No, I don't annoy you." Um but I love that I can learn about things. I know that I can step back. I know that I can, appreciate something without it becoming my entire personality, and that's what
Yeah,
spiritual humility means to me. I can appreciate the wonder of a culture and how it worked and how it still works and the people that are still keeping it alive today and so on, and be there with those people in their own celebrations, if I'm allowed, of course, and getting to celebrate with them. And that's just something that I think is amazing. So I don't know if it
and I love
necessarily
learning
not shows up, but
I l
there's my whole thing.
I love learning how, this is complete side note, I love learning how cultures have changed through the years.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's
It's
cool.
so intriguing to me how they've gone from one type of celebration and moved and progressed to this type and why they progressed to that type of celebration and moved to another type because of this thing, and it intrigues me so much.
Like, I follow a lot of indigenous native um uh content creators. My brain couldn't find the word for a second. Content creators on social media who talk about the indigenous cultures and how they're keeping the movements alive and teaching about them so that way there's not so much misinformation out there, which I appreciate
Mhm.
so much. And I got to see one where they filmed a dance, and it was the first time the dance had been performed in a public space since like the 1950s, because it
Nice.
had been outlawed.
Oh,
And
wow.
it wasn't something that was just, it wasn't, overtly terrible in any capacity. It was something that meant so much to the people that they just didn't want it around. And so they finally, in 2026, almost, 76 years later, 76-ish, give or take. I don't remember the exact day, I just know it was in the 50s. They finally performed it at, I believe it was a powwow. I'm not entirely sure, but I know it was a celebration of some kind, so I don't want to call it a powwow. Um, And it was really fascinating, and they put it on social media, not just for the people who were there and the people who were performing it, but to also show the world that old traditions are still alive and have been alive even when they were tried to be squashed. And so they got to show the world that these things still exist and our people still get to celebrate with them even today.
That's awesome.
And it was just like, oh. And then I got to watch another one
Ah,
that was like death-defyingly terrifying. It was, I wanna say, I don't remember if it was a Thunderbird ceremony or not, but I know it was a ceremony of a flight of some kind of, I don't wanna call it a totem, I don't know the exact wording, so I'm not gonna use that, but basically, they climb up to the top of this almost telephone pole. And they all are strapped in with ropes, and there's four drummers who are drumming around this pole, and then there's one who's dancing on a drum on the very top of this thing.
I
And I'm
have
like,
seen
"Oh my
this.
gosh." And then they do this dance where they take the ropes and they're spinning around this
I've seen
pool, and
this.
it was just oh, it was so beautiful, and I was like my heart was in my throat the whole time. I was like, "You all are not strapped in with harnesses, and you're making me very nervous."
Yes, yes.
But, it was something that their people used to do, and I don't know the exact ceremony of why they did this, but it was so amazing, and I love that these creators are so willing to show how much their traditions still are alive. Not for us to practice, but for us to see the beauty of them and how much they have fought throughout time to keep those alive and are now bringing them back in a facing forward kind of way. And I just love that for those people. That's just amazing. Do I want anything to do with those practices? No. Do I want to be there to watch them and appreciate and celebrate with those people? Fuck yes, if I can. But if I'm not allowed, that's okay. Thank you for putting it on, Instagram for me to see it. I appreciate you. Outside of that, that's it. That's cultural appropriation and appreciation in a nutshell. Do I want to practice them? No, that would be appropriation. Can I appreciate them through Instagram? Hell yes. That there you go. In a nutshell. There's my word vomit of excitement of, cultural learning that I've learned in the last like week. um but yeah. So if you want to know more about this lesson, if this is your first time ever encountering this, um, you're really lucky because this is a pretty hot button topic within, religious communities. Come to the Discord. There is a link in the show description. You can find it there. Also, if you are somebody that enjoyed my nerding out just now, I do this more often than people realize. I do this on my own personal Ko-fi page. Ko-fi's kind of like Patreon, but the temple also has a Ko-fi page. There's two of them. Okay, so support if you can. If you don't, we still love you anyway. That's okay. But the cool thing is, mine I nerd out on. The temple one has way more cool stuff that we do, like rituals and dating the month stuff, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we put together that I have been fighting a backlog of to get caught up on the temple one, and I'm almost there. I have 3 more videos.
Yes,
3 out of
yes.
like 20. Man, you don't understand how hard I've been fighting
You
this.
can do it.
So, if that's something you're interested in, both links are in the show description. You should come check it out. Come join us. Come nerd out with me. Come nerd out in the temple and do all really cool stuff with us. Come hang out with us in Discord because we are also massive nerds over there too, and we do really fun events. Like coming up the day that this airs, if you're listening to it the day that it airs, we will have a channeling with the goddess of Segan in the Discord, and it doesn't cost you anything. You can just show up, and we will be talking to her because she's our deity of the month for August, and it's one of our 2 very last events with her. And then on Thursday, the day after this airs, we will be doing her Echo of Embers, which is a divine message from her that we have prepared. And it is a beautiful ritual. It is fantastic. And you just get to show up and enjoy it. You can hang out with us afterwards if you want to, but no pressure. We would just love to have you there. And then on Sundays, we basically just shoot the shit. We have a thing that's called Coffee Conversations and Chaos, which is literally what it is every Sunday. So, yes. And then
Literally.
next month, because August is almost over, I have no idea where this month has gone. September, our deity of the month is Persephone. So, if she is somebody that fascinates you, come join the Discord. Check out the Temple Ko-fi page as well because we'll have a whole bunch of Persephone related stuff available for you and rituals and all sorts of great stuff. Just come hang out with us. End of story.
We're fun. We
We
really
are.
are.
We're actually surprisingly, as much as I talk on this show, you would be like, Pagan must never shut up in real life. I actually do. I'm pretty quiet. Unless you really know me, I'm a very quiet person. So I'm still in the Discord. I will still absolutely talk to you, but I'm not going to be like chatty Cathy with you. So
On the other hand, Kayla will totally talk to you in Discord.
Kayla will absolutely talk with you until she is too tired to do
The
otherwise.
cows come home.
And she doesn't own any cows. So,
Yeah.
yeah. She will talk to you until the cows come home, and she doesn't even own any cows. So there you go. Come hang out with us. We'd love to see you. You guys are awesome. Thank you for listening to this show. Thank you for supporting it. Thank you for sharing it with your friends, your family, your dog, everyone in between. Because without you, the show does not exist. And you guys are the ones who have kept it running for the last 5 years. I actually had to look up the date for it. It's been 5.5 years since the show started. And I love you all for it because it's amazing. Amazing, amazing. I love that there's so many people who have come through this show and listened to it and appreciated it. And keep coming back because I'm not going to shut up anytime soon. I'm still going to have more stuff to talk about. In fact, I think our lesson plans and stuff that we talk about on the show is like a 10-year plan. It's a little ridiculous. So we have a lot of content in the Discord. We have a lot of content prepared for you and a lot more coming. So subscribe to everything. You guys are amazing. Take care of yourselves in this crazy world. Drink your water, take your meds, whatever you need to do. Love your dog, your cat, your lizard. It doesn't matter. A bird. And we'll see you next time for another episode. Bye bye, everyone.